I'm Chris, you're watching FRAG-MENTAL, thanks for joining me. Should we do an autumn top 10 list? Why not? Stay tuned. Alright, autumn is here again. It just keeps coming round and round as if there was some kind of seasonal rotation going on. Anyway, autumn is my favourite time of year, I would probably say. I mean, I love the summer, I love the winter, but autumn, I just seem to have a lot of great memories tied into it. I spent a lot of time in America when I was studying, and I was there during the fall. It was from the summer to the winter, so I saw the whole change, and I just remember the smells and the sights, the colours of the trees, just absolutely amazing. And then when I was younger, I was about 15, I broke my ankle. I've told you this story before, but I'll tell you again in case you're a new viewer. I broke my ankle, I was sat in the house for a few weeks, couldn't go out, I was on the sofa, and then the first time I went outside, the leaves were falling off the trees, it was autumn time, and suddenly I had sensory overload in terms of my sense of smell, and all the smells of autumn, you know, the decaying leaves and those lovely rich earthy smells just came flooding into my nose. In the fragrance world, we love it because we can start to wear fragrances that are a little richer and a little more complex and maybe even a little more fun to wear. So I've got a good list for you today. I could have picked some of my all-time favorite designer fragrances because I've put those in a lot of lists in the past. I love those fragrances and I definitely will still be wearing them this autumn, but I've tried to put together a list of a few different fragrances, a few newer fragrances to my collection. I want to keep things different. I don't just always want to put a list that is the same out every season, so I will still be rotating through my favorites, but these are some newer favorites, if you like, that I will be definitely rotating through this autumn. So let's go. Kicking off the list at number 10 is a fragrance that's relatively new to me. I have been wearing this quite a bit, but I just think that it will work perfectly in the autumn. It's the only scent from the brand Narciso Rodriguez that I own, and this is for him. This is an eau de toilette, and when I first sprayed this, I thought this is not a mass appealing crowd pleaser, but it's really grown on me. There's something that I find mysterious and mesmerizing about this fragrance. It reminds me of walking through a forest on a damp autumn day, maybe. I get this brooding, melancholic aspect to it, and I get a bit of petrol from the violet leaf, you know, a little bit of that sort of petrol vibe we can find in Dior Fahrenheit. It doesn't smell the same as that, but just a little bit of that kind of accord coming from the violet leaf. So I just find this so interesting. I keep getting drawn to it, and every time I put it on, I just think, actually, I think it is quite mass appealing and crowd pleasing. I've certainly not had any complaints from anyone in my house while I've been wearing this. I just think that it manages to be artistic and wearable at the same time, and whenever a designer fragrance achieves that, I'm always impressed. Number 9 is the best value fragrance on the list, and being from Zara, that will come as no surprise. It is the new release of Warm Black. Of course I enjoy this one because it utilises my favourite note of tobacco, and I love what Zara do with tobacco fragrances. They seem to be some of their most hyped and strongest releases. They just seem to be able to blend a really nice tobacco fragrance. I own all of them, and I would probably say that maybe I enjoy this one the most. There's not a lot in it because I think they're all good, but I do really enjoy this one. On top of the tobacco, you get this sweet, creamy, slightly spicy, peppery vanilla, so it's just perfect for autumn. And the kind of vanilla aspect to this makes me think of when I was a kid and we used to go to a local bakery and we would get these custard tarts in pastry. It wasn't like the Portuguese tarts that you get. It was not as flaky, the pastry. It was like a normal pastry, and then it was like a set custard, and it had like sprinkling on top. It was maybe a little bit of cinnamon, but the smell of this just reminds me of the memory, at least, that I have of that. So it does have just a slight gourmand feel. It's along the lines of something like Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. It's not as neon lit in its brightness. It's not as loud as Tobacco Vanille. This is toned down, it's more refined, it's closer in, Some guys, I think, find tobacco vanille just a little too much, a little too strong, and maybe not masculine enough. I think that this definitely is more masculine, and I think, you know, if you enjoy tobacco vanille but you're not quite confident wearing it, this would be an excellent choice. And at £10 for 100ml, just go and get it. On to number 8, and this one isn't my usual style, but again, like the Narciso Rodriguez, this one balances creativity with wearability, and it's probably the cheekiest little release of the year. I think a lot of people have been enjoying this. From Moschino, it's Toy Boy. Whenever I've heard people talk about this fragrance, they describe it as a rose fragrance. So I was expecting something quite different from what it actually smells like. In fact, I blind smelled this before I even knew what it was. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think it was a rose fragrance. It didn't remind me of what I perceived to be the smell of rose. I guess rose can smell like this because a lot of people say it's a very rosy fragrance. But to me, when I think of rose, I think of a powdery rose or a jammy rose, or the kind of rose you get in a rose oud, or maybe a spicy rose. But you know, a full flowered rose that is maybe red or maybe pink, and I don't get that with this. The colour that springs to mind with this fragrance is green, so I don't get like a feminine rose at all, like what you may associate with Frederic Lamal's Portrait of a Lady. Last time I smelled that, I just felt that was just a little too feminine for me. So this definitely isn't feminine. It's green, it's spicy, it's peppery, it's unisex. I feel like I get quite a lot of vetiver in here, so I get this green, spicy, earthy type of fragrance that is not necessarily your typical designer smell. It doesn't smell generic. I really feel like Moschino have pushed the boundaries here, and I always appreciate it when a designer fragrance brand are brave enough to do that. But they've got it just right. They've got it balanced with the wearability and the mass appeal. I think this one will grab attention. I think it's assertive, and I think you'll feel confident when you're wearing this. It's a very interesting fragrance that I'm really enjoying getting to know. I think it's the cheekiest release of the year. This little bear here has even got a cheeky little smile. He's just smiling because he knows that he's sending ripples throughout the fragrance world. I'm not sure that a leather-clad teddy bear necessarily ties in with how this smells, but he looks like a happy chappy. He's got a cheeky smile. He's smiling. He knows what he's doing to the fragrance industry. He knows that a lot of people are talking about him. You cheeky little thing. But hey, I'll go with it. Why not? Okay, for the next one, we're moving away from Toy Boy, which is a new kind of DNA, and something that is traditionally much more up my street. This is a sweet fragrance that contains tobacco. So there we go. From the 1 million line, it's Prive. The main accords for me in this one are fruits, sweet spices, tobacco and tonka bean, which gives it this lovely smooth, rich dry down. As you would expect from a 1 million fragrance, it's very sweet and moreish. This just works really well for autumn days because it's cozy and comforting, but it's also a very energized fragrance. It's quite a lively scent. It just really pings off the skin and has tons of mass appeal. If you like the original, but perhaps you're looking for something just a little more nuanced and a little more complex and maybe a little more grown up and less recognizable, give Prive a try. Okay, this next fragrance, I'm a big fan of the EDP version in the summer. This is the Parfum version, which makes it a little richer, a little heavier, and a little more suited to autumn. From Chanel, it's Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So this Parfum version retains that classic timeless DNA that we associate with the much loved Bleu de Chanel line, but I think it makes it a little more appropriate to wear in cooler temperatures. Inevitably, whenever I talk about these fragrances, people always want to know what the differences are between EDT, EDP and the Parfum, and quite rightly so, because they all do smell quite similar and it can get quite confusing. So right here, right now, I am going to put this to bed once and for all. I am going to let you know what the main differences are. I will be going into quite some detail with this. It's going to get complicated, so apologies if this goes over anyone's heads. Okay, EDT's all like, hey, I'm clean and sexy and mass appealing. EDP's all like, hey, I'm clean and sexy and mass appealing. Parfum's all like, bro, I'm the freaking Parfum. So there we go, those are the main differences between these three fragrances, so I hope that helps you out if you're considering purchasing any of these. I'm going to be honest, they do all smell quite similar, but this Parfum version, as we would expect, is thicker, richer, deeper, maybe a little more sensual. I know we always say that about parfums, but that's kind of how it works when you come up with a Parfum concentration. And because of those things, I think it is quite appropriate to wear in autumn. It's a very clean, smooth, uncomplicated fragrance. I reach for this one whenever I want something crisp and invigorating that I know will just work for any occasion. Chanel's quality combined with its versatility and mass appeal make this a great choice for autumn if you want to just keep things simple and easy. The next one is quite a new release from Guerlain and one that I was initially a little bit underwhelmed by, but I've revisited this one and I'm happy to say after some time apart, we're getting along just fine. It is Loma del Extreme. So I know I maybe have ruined a few people's days by including a Guerlain on a designer list, but you know, life sucks, deal with it. I think technically you could argue that it's niche. I know that Guerlain do make other things outside of fragrance, but did they start off in fragrance? I don't know. I feel the lines are blurred with this. I think there's people that could argue it either way, but I just feel like the design of these, the packaging, the price point, it just very much is in line with designer fragrances, and if it didn't include it in a niche list or a designer list, it would never get into any videos, and I think it really deserves a place. So apologies to those people who think this should be in a niche list. Sorry, not sorry, but here we are. This is L'Homme Ideal
Extreme.
And we get the almond, we get the creamy almond that we associate with this line. It's a very popular line and a very affordable line as well. In addition to this almond, we get plum, tobacco and leather, and I pick up on a lot of tonka bean. So we get this very creamy, smooth, comforting scent. Now, I had an issue with this when I first smelled it, and I'd seen the note breakdown and I'd read that it was an extreme fragrance, so I really wanted the plum and the tobacco and the leather to be more distinctive and just to be more prominent notes in the composition. And I wanted the overall scent of the fragrance to have more structure, more backbone, a bit more kick to it. I really felt like something that was called extreme should have these characteristics. No, it doesn't. It is a lovely fragrance, but it has taken me a little bit of time to reset and recalibrate and accept that this isn't the fragrance that maybe I wanted it to be. Since I've done that, I've been enjoying it. I've been wearing it in the cooler temperatures and it's working really well, I have to say. I wore this the other evening, I sprayed it and I sat in the house all evening, not going anywhere, but just really enjoying the smell. I was sat there with a smile on my face thinking, this is a good fragrance. And then I went to bed, and then the jumper I'd been wearing, I put the same jumper on again the next day and it was still smelling of this. So in the morning, first thing in the morning, I was greeted with the smell of this fragrance and it was so nice. And at that moment I thought, this is a damn good fragrance and it's going on the autumn list. Okay, we're on to number 4, and this one I think has been on all of my autumn lists that I've ever made. I know I'm trying to keep things different, but this is a real staple for me in the autumn. I love it so much that I could not include this on the autumn list. From Mugler, it's Pure Havane. Pure Havane is a sweet cherry tobacco fragrance combined with honey, but it never gets too heavy, it never gets too dense or too rich. Somehow manages to be energizing and uplifting, but cozy and comforting and satisfying at the same time. So it has a brightness, but it still allows its darker notes to do their thing. My favorite autumn days are those days where it's clear blue skies, it's bright, it's sunny, but there's some coolness in the air. I just find those days really satisfying, and for me, this is the fragrance for those days. I just find that the nature of the composition of this fragrance works just perfectly well with those kind of days. So I love this. It will always be in my autumnal rotation. It's a pretty well priced fragrance as well. You're looking at, you know, at discounters around £40 for 100ml. So if you've not smelt Pure Havane, please do me a favor, try and smell it. If you like it, buy it. So if you like that petrol accord you get in Dior's Fahrenheit, but you also love a bit of creamy vanilla and some booze, then like me, I'm sure you will also like Fahrenheit Le Parfum. That petrol smell that comes from the violet leaf in the Fahrenheit DNA in this version is smoothed out and toned down by this gorgeous boozy rum and rich sweet vanilla, and all those things just make this fragrance incredibly satisfying to wear and mass appealing. I think the violet leaf here, whilst it's toned down from the original, is still giving some attitude and backbone to the fragrance, which I love. I do prefer this to the original. This has some sweeter notes and the booziness, so it aligns more with my tastes than the original. So I find this really warming and cozy and comforting to wear, but at the same time uplifting and mass appealing. It's just got a good balance of everything. I think the notes here, so the creamy sweet vanilla is very much on trend with what seems to be popular in a lot of fragrances these days. I love this fragrance. It really resonates with me. I think it's bloody gorgeous, and it has very quickly become one of my favorite designer fragrances, especially for autumn. All right, we're at number 2 and got another parfum for you. There are 4 on this list, still 1 more to come after this one, so there's a little clue for the number 1. So this is a more grown-up version of the fragrance that was my signature scent for many years. I think probably my only real signature scent actually, which was Lamal. So of course this is Lamal Le Parfum. The opening of this one tips its sailor's hat to the original Lamal DNA with a hint of the mint and the lavender and the wormwood, which is unmistakably Lamal. But then quite quickly it becomes something different. It adds this rich, creamy, sweet vanilla, which in one bold move makes this more grown up and more modern smelling. It scratches my nostalgia itch, it pleases my sweet tooth. This is the Lamal DNA that suits me now. It resonates with me more, I guess, than the original. It's as if the original Lamal DNA had grown with me and matured over time. I think it would have morphed into this fragrance because this just suits me. After a few recent misses, JPG have definitely hit the spot with this one. It's not a game changer, it's just a damn good smelling frag. As promised, the last one is another parfum. This one is from Tom Ford and it's the latest version of one of the most popular fragrances ever. It's Black Orchid Parfum. So I'm going to be honest, if you're not a fan of the original Black Orchid, I don't think you'll be a fan of this one either, because they do smell quite similar. But if you liked it and you like the idea of a version that smells just a little richer and a little boozier, then I think this one will impress you. It has that fruity, chocolatey, patchouli combination, which is one of the most well-rounded fragrances I think I've ever smelled. So it takes that original Black Orchid DNA and it just enriches it a little bit, which in my opinion just pushes it a little more to the masculine. When I sprayed all the test strips in preparation for making this video, I like to spray them all, and as I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, I like to have the strips there on hand just to remind myself of them. And one smell dominated all of the 10 fragrances that I had laid out on the tester strips, and that was this one. And that does reflect the performance that I get. I get great performance out of this. Projection is fantastic off me on the original and on this one as well. I just love this fragrance. I'm really looking forward to wearing the heck out of this, not just only over the next few months, but, well, for the rest of my life. Okay, there we go, 10 awesome autumn fragrances for you to consider. I love making these videos. I love just selecting which fragrances are going to make the cut. this year. Let me know what you think of the fragrances that I've chosen. Have you tried them? There's some older ones in here. Hopefully I've balanced it out with some new releases as well, so you get a nice bit of variety in the list. Let me know what your favourite autumn fragrances are. If you want to leave a list of 10, that's absolutely fine, but maybe let me know your top favourite or your top 3. I just love hearing what your favourite fragrances are. So there we go, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, keep tuning into FM, keep smelling good, and I'll see you in the next one. I just stand at the side and just twiddle my thumbs for 20 seconds just so this end screen can be long enough. See ya.